Alright guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we will be discussing the 10 things that you should know before buying or playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now before going any further into the video, I would just like to say thank you to the people who have subscribed to me. My subscriber count recently went up to 64, so yeah, thank you for that. And in case you are someone who is watching the video and you are not subscribed, you might want to subscribe as well, because I will be covering Assassin's Creed Valhalla extensively in this channel. So anyway, putting that aside, to the main topic in the video, that is the 10 things that about Assassin's Creed Valhalla that you should know about. Now the first thing, this game is set during the Viking era in the late 800s. So I don't know the exact dates. I think it's like 870 or something. Like 870s, was it? Around that time. So that's when this story is set. So this is actually before Assassin's Creed 1 as well. So this makes this particular trilogy before Assassin's Creed 1. So Origins, Odyssey and now Valhalla are both set before Assassin's Creed 1. But since this is set after Origins, now we have both the Order of the Ancients and the Hidden Ones. But we are still not in the point where we have the Templars and the Assassins, because of course the Crusades haven't started yet. The second point is that we start off in Norway. Now this game is primarily set in England, so the most of the story and pretty much everything we are going to do is in England and not in Norway. So, but we do start in Norway, and there's ice everywhere. It looks good. I honestly did not see the entire thing because I didn't want to be spoiled. So yeah, there's that. Now the third point would be Eivor's gender. Now this has been a topic that has been discussed many times. I have made 3 videos about it. I have like a theory on why this is happening. But all of that aside, you can pick Eivor as a male Eivor or a female Eivor. But the actual canonical version is the actual choice where the Animus picks the gender for you. And the Animus is not going to switch randomly, it's just that it is switching according to the story, and the canonical reason is that it is basically selecting the DNA stream whose memories are stronger. Now I don't know what the hell that means. I have an idea maybe about what that means, but I honestly do not know. So maybe we'll find out when we actually play Valhalla, but that is the canonical option. Moving on to the fourth point, that is the gear overhaul. Now, the gear system in Valhalla has completely changed. In Origins and Odyssey, we used to get duplicates, we used to get different sort of gears, but their rarity would be different, and we can't really upgrade from the lower rarity to a higher rarity, and the higher rarity gear basically became the go-to gear anyway. But in Valhalla, that's not the case anymore. In Valhalla, you can pretty much take your starter weapon, that is the most common weapon, and upgrade it all the way to the max tier. And of course, there are 10 other levels of upgrades within each rarity as well. So there is that as well. So yeah, you can increase the rarity of the weapons, of the gear and everything. And of course, there is no leveling system. So pretty much the gear you have will determine how much damage you're doing. And I'll get to that in a separate point. Now moving on to the next point, that is skills and abilities. Now, skills and abilities also work slightly differently than they did with Origins and Odyssey. Now in Odyssey particularly, we had a system where essentially we had to select the skills from that skill tree, and basically all the abilities, all the skills, everything was there. It was basically all there. But in Valhalla though, things have changed a bit. So now in Valhalla, abilities and skills are 2 separate things, and the whole skill tree will focus on skills which we can maybe perform during combat, or maybe the advanced assassination skill which we can use to one-shot any enemy in the game. More on that later. But abilities are some things that you need to find in the world. So you are not going to say go for a grindy quest, you're not going to grind XP and gain that level and then invest it to get an ability. You actually need to find abilities in the world, and that to me is a huge improvement, because that does help with exploration. Now moving on from skills and abilities to a more important topic, that is, this game has a power level and not a proper leveling system. Now the way it worked in Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, and even in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, back when Syndicate was a thing, it is that the more you kill enemies or the more you do things, you gain XP, then that XP fills up a bar, that bar levels you up, and the more level you have, the more damage you do and the more health you have. So essentially it made it absolutely impossible for you to take on an enemy that is maybe 5 or 6 levels above you. So Valhalla is doing away with all of that. The way it works in Valhalla is that you gain skill points and you put those skill points to use in the skill tree. Now the amount of skill points that you have actually used will kind of show what power level you have. So say you have spent 6 ability points. That would mean you have 6 power. That's how it works now. So I feel that is a much better system than what they used to have, and this would mean that the people who played Assassin's Creed from before the Origins Odyssey period and those who did not like this move towards an RPG, they might warm up a little because it's not the stat based RPG anymore where we are maxing out our crit damage, maxing out our health or whatever. So like I got caught up in that and made a build of my own where my assassination was, what is it? Yeah, I had 575% crit damage on full health and also 100% crit chance on full health. I was relying on crits. So essentially what happened was I played as a stealth character. So basically I could one hit every single enemy in the game. Like there was no enemy that wouldn't die in one shot. So that's what happened. Anyway, so you don't have that in Valhalla anymore. In Valhalla, it is more based on skill. In fact, I believe Joe Raptor even made a video on it where he essentially went into a very high level camp and cleared it anyway. Because now you can do that. Like you will die in one or two hits, but so can the other enemy. I mean, like you can actually do significant damage based on what skills you have and based on what abilities you have. Because there is no scaling of damage or anything like that. I know I spent a lot of time in powers because this I feel is the most important change that Valhalla has made. Now moving on from that, we have more stealth options. Now that simply just means that there is a lot more we can do with stealth, especially with the advanced assassination ability. Not ability, advanced assassination skill. So what that does is that starts a quick time event. So say your attack is not going to kill the enemy outright. So what happens is that now when you try to stab them, this quick time event starts up and the bar shrinks, and if you can stop it in the perfect time, you can kill any enemy. Like this would even work on bosses. Yeah, I am not exaggerating or anything. This works on bosses as well. So keep that in mind. And that's not all. There are small grass shrubs on top of roofs sometimes. So that you can use that as well. But of course, other than that, it's pretty much the same stealth system as Odyssey, which was competent enough, so I'm not going to complain about that. There is another option that makes stealth a lot better, is that it's in the menu in the gameplay. If you want it, you can just enable assassination, like all assassinations at all time. So like this game has different difficulty levels for different sort of things, like exploration has a different difficulty, combat has a different difficulty, and stealth has a different difficulty. And you also have the option to always kill the enemy on an assassination. So if I perform an assassination, the enemy will always die. And that was not the case in Origins and Odyssey. Like unless and otherwise you go for a ridiculously crazy build like I did. So yeah. So in this case, yeah, you can basically assassinate them with one hit at all times if you want. So personally, I will be using that because that is more in line with what I expect from Assassin's Creed, and I hate QTs. So that's what I will be doing. But again, those are my own choices. Of course, you can or cannot engage in that depending on your preferences. In the 8th point, there is social stealth is back. Now, of course, this is also part of stealth, but I feel like this is a significant enough change to actually merit a discussion of its own. Now, social stealth is back, and you might say that from the looks of it, it's looking very bare bones. It's not the things that we expect. But once again, you have to remember, there are not many NPCs around in the world. And also, this is before Assassin's Creed 1 as well. I mean, so the fact that this actually resembles Assassin's Creed 1 more than any other Assassin's Creed game in terms of the social stealth actually makes a whole lot of sense. Maybe even in the gameplay perspective, as much as it makes sense in the lore perspective. So personally, I don't particularly have a problem with that. I'm just happy it's back. Now, once it's back, then maybe they can innovate more on that, and maybe they can have some genuine innovation in Assassin's Creed. But again, that's a different topic. That's a different topic for a different time, not here. So the next point, that is Assassin's Creed Valhalla is more grounded and less fantastical than Odyssey. Now, you may like Odyssey, you may hate Odyssey. I am personally on the latter side. But one thing you cannot quite deny is that Odyssey didn't quite make sense as to what it was trying to do. The thing is, you can't expect a grounded narrative and then basically annihilate enemies with a glowing spear which lets you do these amazing superhero-esque abilities and make all of that make sense. So that was the problem I had. That was one of the major problems I had with Odyssey, and Valhalla seems to have worked on that. Now, that doesn't mean that there are no mystical elements in Valhalla. It's just that in Valhalla, when these things happen, they are illusions or delusions or poisonings or something like that, instead of it just existing in the world like a normal thing, like it was in Odyssey. So that's what's happening here. So I would say the approach of Valhalla is much more grounded and much less fantastical than Odyssey was. Now at number 10, this is something that can either make you like the game very much or completely disregard the game. Now, if you're someone who has jumped into the franchise after Origins and Odyssey and you didn't really care about Assassin's Creed before, these sort of things will kind of take away from the experience. But if you're someone who has been a long-term fan like I am, this actually makes me want to come back to the franchise even after the absolute disaster that was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And yes, it was. I have detailed everything about why it's a disaster in separate videos. Do check out those videos on my channel. But yeah, this is much more of an Assassin's Creed experience. Now, Odyssey had the whole cult of Cosmos, and many people have argued with me like, yo, cult of Cosmos is so important, they were a part of the origination of the Templar Order, and I'm like, let's be honest, we all know that they didn't do shit. It was the Order of Ancients who were the actual Templars, who became the actual Templars, because their philosophy, their abilities, their perspective was what later became the Templar Order, not the cult of Cosmos. The cult of Cosmos didn't have anything. They were generic bad guys. They were just shoehorned in with the Order of the Ancients so that these two orders combined and made the Templar Order. It doesn't make any sense. But what I am saying is, as I've mentioned before in my very first point, that this is a story about the Order of Ancients and the Hidden Ones. It's not Assassins and Templars per se, because of course they don't exist yet. Maybe they will exist after the game, but they don't exist yet. But essentially the fight, the spirit of Assassin's Creed is still there. And even the protagonist, everything that is surrounding the game looks more and more like an Assassin's Creed experience before it is a Viking experience. And I like that. And that brings about the end of the 10 things you should be expecting from Valhalla, or 10 things you should know about before buying or playing Valhalla. Now, what do I feel? Because this also is sort of a preview video, because Assassin's Creed Valhalla is out tomorrow for me basically, and the day after tomorrow for the rest of the world. Like, actually, if you live in like India, you get it earlier because it unlocks at 12 o'clock. If you are in New Zealand, you're going to get it before even I do. So there's that. So since it's so close, I just wanted to give my thoughts for the one last time. And my thoughts on this is that I am going into this game with incredibly low expectations. Like, I do not expect anything from this game. Like, I've said many things. Like, in the last point, I was basically going off, I was praising the game, but I still do not expect much from this game. The reason is, we still have dialogue choices. I don't know how well those are going to pan out. There are many doubts about how this franchise is going to go forward after the colossal mess that was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was essentially the last Jedi of Assassin's Creed. And so this has a very high chance of being this Rise of Skywalker. And as we all know what happened in that, this doesn't bode well for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And that is why I'm really going in with my expectations low. Now, this could mean I could have my mind blown, or this could just mean that I will just come out of it with a meh. And that's basically all there is, really. That's all I know about this game, and of course all of my perspectives so far are coming from what I've already seen. And honestly, I've seen more from YouTubers than from Ubisoft themselves, and that's kind of weird, but that's fine, you know. But yeah, so far from what I've seen of the game, it's okay, but it doesn't really inspire me with confidence that it's going to be a brilliant game. But again, that's just me. I could be wrong. Hell, I am hoping that I'm wrong. So what do you guys think? Do let me know down in the comments below. And yeah, do like the video if you like my content. Hopefully do not dislike the video because that would suck. And also subscribe to my channel because, as I said before, I am going to cover Valhalla because after all, it's an Assassin's Creed game. This is an Assassin's Creed channel, so you connect the dots. Anyway, you know, I've babbled on for long enough and I leave you guys in peace. So yeah, peace.